The Bromoil process and the emotional erosion of truth in documentary photography. We've been taught to believe a photograph is truth, that a camera records reality, that sharpness equals accuracy, that detail equals honesty. But what if clarity is not truth, but emotional distance? Today we're exploring the Bromoil process, one of the most radical transformations in photographic history. A technique that does not preserve an image. It dismantles it, and rebuilds it by hand. The process begins with a silver gelatin print. Precise, detailed, supposedly objective, a record of light fixed through chemistry. Then comes the rupture. The print is chemically bleached, stripping it down to a faint ghost of its original image. What remains is a fragile structure of memory rather than a finished photograph. Then comes the reversal. Oil-based pigment is applied by hand onto the damp surface. Brush replaces lens. Pressure replaces exposure. The photographer no longer records reality, they reconstruct it physically. Pigment gathers unevenly. Some areas deepen, others fade. Details are emphasized or erased depending on touch and intention. And here the paradox becomes clear. What began as documentary evidence is now openly subjective. No two Bromoil prints are ever identical. Even from the same photograph, each version diverges. It is no longer reproduction. It is interpretation, a physical argument with truth. In a digital world built on precision, high resolution, metadata, timestamps, we assume accuracy guarantees authenticity. But extreme clarity can feel emotionally distant, informative, yet strangely empty. The Bromoil process reverses this. By removing detail, it introduces presence. By erasing precision, it creates atmosphere. By destroying objectivity, it reveals emotional truth. The surface becomes unstable, painterly, human. And the viewer is no longer looking at pure evidence, but interpretation. The photograph stops pretending to be neutral. It admits it was always shaped by decisions. Where to stand, when to press the shutter, what to include or exclude. The Bromoil process simply makes that hidden subjectivity visible. There is also something deeply physical about it. Hands enter the image. Touch becomes meaning. The photograph becomes an object shaped by resistance and time. And in that imperfection, something closer to lived experience emerges. This is why Bromoil prints feel less like documents and more like memories. Not because they are less true, but because they are more human. They acknowledge that reality is always filtered through emotion and perception. And in doing so, they reveal a different kind of honesty. One that precision alone cannot deliver. The next time you see a perfectly sharp photograph, pause. Consider the invisible choices behind its clarity. Then imagine it softened, altered, reinterpreted by hand. Not as a distortion of truth, but as a reminder that truth was never purely mechanical. Because photography does not simply record reality. It negotiates it, and sometimes meaning appears only when the image begins to erode.